Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm in a dreadful rush. I wonder if I can just... I need to get to him. I wonder if you've ever been in a rush and everybody is getting in your way and nobody is understanding how much of a rush you're in. In today's true story from Mark's Gospel, we learn about a man who needed to get to Jesus and was in a real rush and had a really good reason, and nothing was happening as quickly as he wanted. But before that, why don't we start at the very beginning? Because you know what? That's a very good place to start. Jesus and his 12 disciples had sailed back across the Sea of Galilee, and a huge crowd had gathered. They'd wanted to hear his teaching. They'd wanted to see the man who could calm the storm, to see the man who could cast out evil spirits. But there were two people in the crowd that day who had a special reason for wanting to get close to Jesus. And the first of those people was this man, Jairus. Now, Jairus was the leader of the local synagogue, the local Jewish temple. He was an important and respected man in town, and my guess is that normally people would step aside and let him come through. But today we can imagine as he's trying to get through the crowd. You see, Jairus' daughter, who was 12 years old, was dangerously ill, and Jairus was desperate for Jesus to come to his house and to heal her. Excuse me, I need to get through. I wonder whether... Excuse me, I must get through. Well, Jairus manages to get through the crowd, and the first thing he does is to fall at Jesus' feet. And he says this, "My daughter is dying. Please come and lay your hands on her. Please come and heal her." And Jesus agrees. So Jairus starts to lead the way through the throngs of the crowd to his house and to his dying daughter. But there's somebody else in the crowd who needs to get close to Jesus. And that is this lady. A lady who had been ill for 12 years. A woman who had spent all of her money on doctors and none of them could heal her. And as she pushes through the crowd, she is desperate just to reach out and to touch the hem of Jesus' coat. And she manages. She reaches out and touches Jesus' cloak. And Jesus stops. Jairus is trying to hurry their way through the crowd, and Jesus stops. But you see, God's timetable, Jesus' timetable, is not the same as ours. And Jesus has sensed that some of his power has gone out of him and that the woman has been healed. And he knows that he needs to speak to her. So he says this. He turns around and looks at the crowd. "Who touched me?" And his disciples are amazed. "Master, you've got crowds pressing in on you from every side, and yet you asked who touched you?" The woman comes forwards. And Jesus says this to her. "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go. Go in peace. You are freed from suffering." And even as Jesus stood there and talking to the woman, men arrive from Jairus' house. It's the news Jairus had been dreading. They say this, "Jairus, your daughter has died. Do not bother the teacher anymore." Desperate, desperate news. But Jesus, turning to Jairus, says this, "Do not be afraid, just believe." Was there a flicker of hope in Jairus' heart? He leads the way to the house, and now Jesus leaves behind the crowd, taking with him only 3 of his disciples as witnesses. Jesus goes to Jairus' house, and turning out the the family from the little girl's room, Jesus goes in there with Mum, Dad, and the 3 disciples. And Jesus gently takes Jairus' daughter's hand and says 2 words to her in his native Aramaic, Talitha Kuem, which means, little girl, it's time to get up. And she does. She stands up. Can you imagine the tears of pain turning to tears of joy, the hugs, the thanks? And Jesus tells the family, do not tell anybody about this healing. You see, on that amazing day, one of the most respected men in town has taken his despair and fallen at Jesus' feet. And one of the poorest women in town has taken her years of suffering and has reached out to touch Jesus. And in God's own time and in God's own timetable, both of them have been healed. Now, when we're in pain, when we're in a panic, the waiting can feel unbearable, but Jesus always keeps his promises. If there's something in your heart that seems that God is making us wait for, we need to trust his timetable. We need to trust the one who has the power to heal, the power over even death itself. We need to trust his plan. We reach out to Jesus, we fall at his feet, and we can trust his plan, even through the painful, even through the sad and uncertain times. If you look to the last page of the Bible, God promises us that a time will come when he will wipe away every tear, when pain and death will be no more. And although we may be in a hurry and impatient, hurry up, get on with it. At the right time, God will keep his promise. And in the meantime, we need to remember the words that Jesus said to Jairus. Do not be afraid, just believe. Have a great day.